In this next in our series on Paul's charge to Timothy, we look at these words: pursue faith and love. Well, those are huge subjects, aren't they? Firstly, faith. This word can mean faithfulness or belief or trust, and it hasn't with it an implication that actions based on that trust will follow. So faith here doesn't mean just an intellectual assent to a creed. It is, if you like belief in action. Right in the moment I'm sitting on a chair, I'm putting my whole weight on this chair, believing that it will carry my weight. It's not going to collapse under me. That's an example of faith. A better example perhaps will be that of Peter, who walked on water. He knew that it was possible because he had seen Jesus do it. And he knew also that what Jesus could do, the disciples should be able to do. And he says to Jesus, "If it's your will, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus says, "Come." It's only as Peter gets up from his seat and swings his leg over the side of the boat and puts his foot on the surface of the water that God's power is released to enable him to walk on water. That is faith. Not sitting in the boat as the other disciples were thinking, yeah, that's probably possible. It's as we put our money where our mouth is, if you like. It's as we put our whole life in God's hands that we are expressing faith. The last words of Jesus on the cross are a statement of faith. "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." And then love. Love in the New Testament is usually the active love of God for his Son and his people, and the active love his people are to have for God and for each other, and even for our enemies. Faith and love, of course, are two of the three great virtues: faith, hope, and love. And in Galatians 5:6, Paul says this: "The only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love." So both faith and hope are signs and fruits of relationship. So if we're going to pursue faith and hope and love, we need to grow in relationship with God. And relationship, of course, grows through communication. So perhaps one way to grow in relationship with God is through the communication of prayer. This is a spiritual discipline of engagement that might help us to grow in faith and in love. Prayer is a two-way conversation with someone who loves you more than you can possibly imagine. As we come to God in just in the silence, in our own hearts, on our own time, and tell him what you think, tell him how you feel, and then listen to his voice in our hearts, that inner voice of God. And one thing that can help us to do that is a spiritual discipline of abstinence, that of solitude and silence. Just being alone in silence, perhaps in an environment where we can be aware of the beauty of God's creation. And in this springtime, and with the lovely weather that we've been having, just to be outside and to sit in silence and just watch and listen and smell and give thanks to God for his presence with you and his provision in all of creation. Both faith and love are a choice. We choose to love, we choose to have faith. And love is always a matter of free will. There is no compulsion in love, or it's not love. You cannot make someone love you. And faith is literally a choice. It's a choice to step out of the boat. And so we need to look for opportunities to express faith, to do those things that make no sense at all if God is not real. One preacher, John Wimber, once or frequently said that faith is spelt R-I-S-K, risk. So there needs to be a sense of risk to it. Faith feels scary. Though neither faith nor love are primarily feelings, although feelings of faith and love can ensue. So don't wait until we feel love or feel like we have faith. C.S. Lewis said that expressing love increases love. That even if we don't feel love, if we act as though we love, we are expressing love, and the feelings often follow. And both faith and love are expression and given life. They are embodied in action. So we need to act in faith, to do the thing that is based on faith, do the thing that is based on love. The writer to the Hebrews says this: faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. So how do we act in love? Well, that's more obvious perhaps. Those acts of generosity and acts of service of others, those things help us to express love to others. They can be words of kindness or encouragement. They can be a card or a note or a message or a phone call. Something really simple that they're done as out of a desire to love that person with their best interest at heart. That is a spiritual discipline. And growing in our faith, one thing we can do is to count our blessings. In his excellent book, The Good and Beautiful God by James Bryan Smith, he says that as we need to grow in our belief and understanding that God is trustworthy, one helpful way to do this, one soul training exercise, is to count our blessings. To sit down and make lists of the things that God has done in the past that have been good for us. And that helps us to grow in our expectation that he will be good to us in the future and that he is trustworthy. And so we grow in our faith. And another thing he highlights, and you've got to love a book that encourages us to this, is sleep. There are many things that rob us of sleep, and one of them is worry. One of the things that I've found helpful over the years is to practice that ancient prayer pattern of Compline or night prayer before going to sleep, and especially the traditional Psalms, Psalm 4 and Psalm 91, that speak of the trustworthiness, the faithfulness of God. At the end of the day, before we abandon ourselves to sleep, doing so trusting ourselves to God. So, dear friends, let's pursue in all the ways that we can faith and love. Amen.